All right, how y'all doing? How are all y'all doing? Plural of y'all is? All y'all. Okay. Everybody at your table, pull out one pineapple. I want one, not two, not three. How many? One pineapple. Pull out a pineapple right now. Let's go. One pineapple. Does everybody have a pineapple? Okay, good, good. One singular pineapple. Excellent. Here's how this is going to work. Somebody take the pineapple. Now, see, I see two pineapples. One pineapple. Okay, somebody take the pineapple. What's going to happen is, in a second, Mark Graham is going to start the music. And you are going to throw this pineapple to each other at your table, and only at your table. Where are you going to throw the pineapple? At your table. And somebody is going to catch that pineapple, and the last person to either touch or catch the pineapple when the music stops will what? Win. Are you with me? Are you with me? Now here's the thing. That is not the typical game, is it? What's the typical rule of this game? What game are we playing? Hot potato with a pineapple, right? And so the rule of this game is the last person to touch it is going to win. Here's the trick. It's got to be in constant motion. You cannot hold the pineapple more than 1 second. Are you with me? So you got that, right? Okay. Mark, are you ready? Come on. Keep going, keep going. Okay, stop. All right. You just learned the first rule of delegation, and that is know the game you're playing. Know the game you're playing. So here's where we're going to start. How many of you think you need an LP1 or an LP2 to learn how to delegate? Raise your hand. Raise your hand. No, baby. That's not the game. The game that you are going to play if you want to learn to delegate is you're going to start with two fundamentals. And this is going to apply no matter whether you have a single staff person or whether you're still one of those folks that's trying to run this thing on your own. The game is defined by two things. Ready? One, you must define the rules. Let me say that again. You, meaning you, must define the rules. You must define the rules. You must define the rules. And second, you must transfer ownership of the win. You must transfer ownership of the win. There's a very convenient place to write this stuff down on page 23, by the way, which is right just before a couple of the things I'm going to share with you. So again, you must transfer ownership of the win. All right? Give you a second to get that. So define the rules, transfer ownership of the win. Let's talk about this for a second. When is your first opportunity as a loan originator to define the rules? What's the first moment of truth? I don't care whether you have staff. We're not talking about staff. When you talk to your borrower. The first rule of delegation is your borrower should work for who? You. Because, you know, Chris Ringrose and I talk a lot about the subject of how we as a company can get faster and better. And one of the things that I have learned in the last 5 years is how important it is that we put together the right amount of quality at the very beginning. Does that make sense? So we start with the defining rules of the borrower. So let's talk about that. Raise your hand if you feel like you have a really good ownership of the borrower. Raise your hand. Okay, cool. So Mark, give me one thing that you think comes from that ownership. What happens as a result of your ownership of the borrower? What does that mean to you?
They do
So let me say that out loud. Mark says that his borrowers do a big chunk of his job for them. Raise your hand if you feel like that's you. Your borrowers do a big chunk of your job for you. Okay, that's not enough hands. Now, why is that? Why do we not do that? Give me an example of a borrower's doing your job for you. What does that mean to you?
Instead of you writing so if you need to get something from the borrower, you get it from them timely. You're not having to constantly, you don't have to hunt it down yourself. You're able to tell them exactly what you need, when you need it, what's needed, how it's needed, and who's going to do it.
Okay, so I'm going to repeat that in a little bit of shorter version. You are defining exactly what you need and within what time frame, and you're transferring ownership of the win. What's the win? You getting what you asked for in the right way at the right time. One of the best examples of this is verifications of employment. Are you with me? Right? Because sometimes if you're working with big companies, it's hard to get not just what you need, but within the right time frame, and more importantly, spelled out in the way you need it. Does that make sense? So this is the kind of way that we can take ownership of that process. Now, I am sure Mark and others who feel like they have big borrower control. By the way, who here would like to have more control of your life? Raise your hand. Okay, good. Good. One of the ways you get that is you have a control conversation with your borrower well in advance of a loan actually coming together, right? So what does that look like? What does that look like? How would you do that? What's a control conversation? That's where you're sitting down with your borrower, either on the phone or in person. Let's say Braden's my borrower. You sit down with Braden and you say, hey man, I know that you're the client. And so you're going to want to drive the process and you're going to want to, have a great service experience. But I am the only person that owns that experience for you. And so if you trust me, we're going to do business together. And if you trust me, you're going to do exactly what I say when I say it. And if we do that, you get the win. And what's the win? You get your house closed on time. You get your house closed without stress, and you get to feel good in the process. Are you with me? Okay, now, let me ask you something. If I get, or Todd or Chris, get a call about a loan file, is that a good day or a bad day? It's usually not a good day because in our world, what happens typically is the originator, originates the transaction. It might get elevated to an ops manager. It might, somebody on the pod might try to deal with it. Then it goes to a branch manager, and then it comes to probably me. And then if I can't deal with it, then it probably goes to Chris. And if Chris can't deal with it, we get Todd involved. Are you with me? So when Todd gets that call, how bad is this? Bad. Okay? I would guarantee you, and Todd and I haven't orchestrated this, but Todd, would you say 100% of the time when you actually get that call and you got this loan file elevated, would you say 100% of the time the wrong expectations were set in the borrower in the very beginning? Would you say 100% of the time that's probably true? Yeah. So here's the thing. We've got to remember that delegation starts there with the borrower. What about the referral partner? What about the referral partner? How many of you feel like you transfer ownership to the referral partner? Raise your hand. Okay, that's a problem. Mike, you've just learned this lesson, right? It's changed your life, hasn't it? Praise the Lord, right? Yeah. He's found Jesus, and it happens to be his delegation to his client. And this guy's on fire. Okay? So, start with those two things. Think about how you can define the rules of the game and create ownership of the win. Does that make sense? There's one other hint. Transfer your anxiety. Let me say that again. Hey, if you are a successful loan officer, I know one thing. You have a barely treated anxiety disorder. Okay? Maybe self-medication. I'm not sure what it is. So the quicker and faster you can transfer your anxiety to others, the more they're going to be engaged in the process. That's how you enlist their support. I'm not telling you that I want them to be fearful. Well, maybe a little. I just want them to be focused on the same things. What is your referral partner most focused on in a transaction? maybe their commission. I actually think it's a little more nuanced than that. At least in my conversations with them, I think that they want to look good to their borrower, or to their buyer, and to your borrower, and to their client. Does that make sense? And I think that they know that they're going to get paid if they do that, but they really want that person to feel good about the experience most of the time. Now, especially if they're good ones, right? So if we have a loan contingency removal date that is 10 days away, right? And if you're in San Francisco, you know, our average contract that we see is 17 days. It's contract to close. Wow. That's pretty fast, isn't it? And do we do it? Not all the time. So how do we deal with that? We tell them the truth up front. We're going to work our hardest to get this closed, and Mr. Borrower, this is what we're going to need from you, and Mr. and Mrs. Agent, this is what we're going to need from you. And when it doesn't happen, if it doesn't happen, that's going to be, you know, unusual, but it could happen. And if that happens, I'm going to need you to get an extension, and you're all going to say yes. Do you get it? That's the conversation we have up front. Are you with me? Okay. So transferring ownership is about transferring anxiety to some degree, because you've got to get everybody else anxious about the same thing. The referral partner, they want to look good. The first moment of truth for the referral partner after getting them in contract, which is a big one, right? They get in contract. In most of your markets, is that hard or easy to get in contract right now? It's hard, right? Okay, so get in contract. First moment of truth is the loan contingency removal date for you, those of you in California. Everybody say amen if you agree with that. Amen. Okay, that's their first moment of truth. All right? So what will your agent need from you to feel comfortable releasing contingencies? What are they going to need from you? A clean what? Underwriting approval. Anybody disagree with that? Most agents need a clean underwriting approval, not just our automated, DULP, but a clean underwriting approval, right? For them to feel comfortable with that. So everything in our system, as we start delegating from the front end, we have to start talking that language. Does that make sense? So if Deb Westland, who's one of our top producers in the Brentwood office, if Deb Westland is managing everything on her pipeline to make sure that that clean underwriting approval comes in the allotted period of time, what's going to happen for her for the rest of that file? They trust her. She will get less anxiety and less phone calls. Does that make sense to everybody? So I think that the first thing that I would say is practice your delegation, even if you don't have an LP1 or LP2, because you can delegate to lots of people. You can delegate to your escrow officer. You can delegate to your borrower. You can delegate to your referral partner. You can delegate to your ops manager. You can delegate to your branch manager. There are a few people in our Walnut Creek office that have really learned how to do that. Casey, how has that affected your life? Unbelievable, right? Yeah, when you start to be able to take these other resources and delegate to them, you multiply yourself. Okay. How many of you feel you're great delegators? Raise your hand. Delegation comes with a result, and that is personal income. There is never a time when you will find somebody that makes big dollars that does not know how to delegate. Todd, would you agree? You have to learn how to delegate if you want to earn big. So here's how you're going to do it. I promise you this. I'm going to spend 30 minutes with you now, or whatever, something like that. And if you do half of what you learned today, you can double your income. There are many examples. If you're in the Bay Area region and you have at least doubled your income since you joined Summit Funding, please stand up. Come on, there's a lot of you. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, you have. You're almost there. All right, thank you. Give those guys a hand. They've done a lot of things, but most of what they've done is they have learned how to delegate, and that has been a big thing for them. Okay, so I want to start off with some of the things that you might already know, but I think could help to get your head around this. If you go to your handout, this is pages 24 and 25. I'm going to start actually with page 25. And Mark, can you just advance to slide 1 for me? Okay. I just want to explain this because I think this could be helpful for some of us that it kind of defines what it is that we need to be thinking about every day. So if you start at the top, what's our number one job as a loan originator? Sales, right? Lead generation, okay? So when we get a lead in the door, check it out. It goes down one of two paths. The first is it goes down a little, think of it visually, pretend like you remember Chutes and Ladders. Think of it like Chutes and Ladders. Either shoots on down to the administrative side or it shoots on down to the technical side. One of those two things, okay? If it shoots down to the administrative side, that means it is now ready to become a loan. Let me say that again. You've got a lead, it shoots down to the administrative side, it's now ready to become a loan. So that means that this person actually, what? Qualifies, right? Okay? So boom, it goes down to the administrative side, and I'll talk about that in a second. If it does not meet that test, where does it go? It goes down to the technical side. And this is like mortgage purgatory, right? This is where you take that little perfect snowflake and you polish it all up and you try to figure out, you do rapid rescore and you get a co-borrower and you get, right? Okay. Now, the first thing that we have to be honest about is too many times when we generate that lead, we choose the wrong chute. Do you agree? How many times, it's so hard to do this. I'm not going to look at you, Mike Content, but what I was going to say is when you learn this lesson, it changes your life when you say, wait a second, this is a lead and it's not ready to go into my pipeline. How many of you had that experience? We've actually consciously made that decision, said, okay, it's not ready. How good does that feel? It's hard at first. Why is it hard? Because you want to do what? You want to say yes. I mean, forget the money. The money is the result. You want to say yes. You want to help your referral partner. You want to help that borrower and buyer. I know that's who you are, you know? So, okay, so the first decision we have to make is which track does it go down to. So let's talk about the technical side. So if it goes down the left chute, that's the technical side. That's the side where we need a little bit of therapy, okay? And so let's talk about what that means. Well, it could mean that the person doesn't have enough cash. What's a good solution for that? A donor, gift donor, sure. Or they could save more, right? Or. What? Maybe they don't have enough income. What could you do there? Right. Non-occupant co-borrowers, all sorts of things. That's where you deal doctor this thing, okay? I want to make one comment. I guarantee you if I went into any random Summit Funding branch and I started asking the loan managers and the operations manager, if they had one in that branch, who the best loan officers are, and I didn't define what best means. Are you with me? So I just said, who are the best loan officers, you know? Who would they say are the best loan officers? What would be their definition? If I walked into Brent's branch and I said, hey, who's the best loan officers in your branch? He's a satellite, but whatever. The people that do this decision-making well. Are you with me? Because when they get something, they measure themselves differently than you do. They measure themselves on, number one, how much work they have to do before it's ready to actually submit to underwriting, right? Number two, on their PTD count. You know that, right? That's I don't trust me. I wish I could change this, but at the end of the day, I want them to focus on loan contingency removal, rate lock, and close of escrow. But what are they going to focus on? Their turn time and their number of PTDs. That's the things that they're going to focus on. Are you with me? So don't argue with reality. What happens when reality hits you in the face? Give it a hug. It's right there, okay? So there it is. Good. So the way that they're going to measure things is how clean is this file? What's my PTD count, right? How documented is it? All those kinds of things. All right. So the technical side of the business is really important. I think that you could make it so much easier on yourself. You know, Todd has always said that leads solve everything. You've heard him say that a million times. And the other thing that I would also say is just because you're the smartest loan officer on the planet and you actually can polish a turd, okay, does not mean you should. Are you with me? I mean, there are some loan officers, and I'm not going to look at one that I'm sitting right next to in this very, very room, that can literally get almost any loan closed because they're that smart. Does not mean that they should. right? Okay, so make this decision carefully, you guys, because I think one of the things that gets really, really frustrating for you and ultimately for your teams is how much time gets spent on a file that should have gone down the other chute before it's ready to go back. Are you with me? So now let's say you've got that file and you've polished it up, it's ready to go. You send it back to administration. That means that it's now ready to go through the linear process of the loan. Here's the thing I love about mortgage lending. It is purely manufacturing. It goes from A to B to C to D, and then sometimes it goes back one step. It's like, whatever that game was where you don't pass go and you go back, I guess Monopoly. It's like you can go forwards and backwards, but it's linear. It goes here and then here. Does that make sense? Folks, we have 3 skill sets if you're a good loan officer. You've got a sales skill set, you've got a technical skill set, and you've got an administrative skill set. I want you to write down the word management underneath where that word pipeline velocity is. Underneath that, I want you to write management. Please write management. Most loan officers, actually, of these 3 things, struggle the most with management. Now, what does that mean? Okay, well, it means this. You've got a list of 12 files that are active, right? And somehow getting that list of 12 files from each stage, because every single one of those 12 files is at a different stage, right? And you're trying to move those files through the system. Somehow that process is hard for us as originators. It's a skill set that somehow doesn't tend to be in our DNA, generally speaking. And the reason that I know that is because I have sat in on pipeline meetings, and they're bad. Most pipeline meetings are discussions that don't focus on the fact that every single loan is at a stage and you're trying to move it to the next stage. Are you with me? Okay? And so what we have to do in that pipeline meeting is analyze each of those 12 loans, determine what stage it's in, how to get it to the next stage, and then what? Yeah, and assign who's going to do that, what the specific task is that can be done that day. Let me just make one comment. Management of your pipeline is assigning one specific task on a daily basis on every file. I'm going to say that again because it's so important. Managing your pipeline is assigning one specific task on a daily basis for every file. Now, if you're an originator that doesn't have an LP1 and doesn't have an LP2 and doesn't, how does that work? Well, maybe 50% of those things, who's going to have to do them? You are. But the other 50% might involve your loan manager, might involve an approval specialist, might involve your ops manager. I'm not sure. It depends on where the file is. Does that make sense? It might involve who? Your borrower. It might involve your realtor. If you have a real estate agent or a referral partner that you've got multiple files with, you can have a pipeline meeting with that person. Some of you do. Some of you that I work with. I have to say, Steve and Lynn and their team, Lisa Perrin and Mark and Blake, they put together the best pipeline meeting I have ever seen. I went in, and I have the luxury of getting a chance to work with these guys. I went in and saw it one time, and I came back with all sorts of notes and said, this is how we do it now. So I learned that from them. Thank you, guys. And I'll tell you, it's just magic when you have that kind of a rigid process of how you're going to take that little file and move it along. So you got to involve others. You can't just, even if you're an originator without a staff, you have these resources. Your escrow officer, that's part of your team, right? Okay. So that's this. Questions about this. Questions about what a loan officer does. Is it hard to find somebody that has all 3 of these skill sets? Absolutely. Absolutely. I know a lot of people don't have the patience to really understand the guidelines. Okay? So that's one of the reasons why sometimes loans wind up down the wrong chute. Comment. If when you're talking to a borrower, you have that feeling. Anybody that been in the business less than 5 years? Maybe Dominic. Okay, so Dominic doesn't know any better yet. Hey, this guy is going to be a superstar. Stand up, Dominic Villa. Give him a hand. So I just want to pick on him for a second. Casey Sullivan hired Dominic as what, a dialer? How long have you been with us? How long have you been originating? How many purchase transactions did you close last month? How many are you going to close this month? Just one. How many next month? Probably 3. 3 to 4? Yeah, this guy is going to be a superstar. Why is he going to be a superstar? Because he understands this, and he's got the heart and energy to apply it. Plus, he works for Casey. He's pretty darn smart. Thank you, Dominic. Good job. So listen, here's the deal. Figure out which of these things you're not good at, because you have to get good at it. If you want to be great, all of us have a weakness on this, okay? But if you want to be great, and great could mean for you, you want to make $150,000 a year and not work very hard. That's fine. Whatever your definition of great is, you're going to have to focus on this, because as you get better at each of these things, you will find a huge increase in the performance of your income and your team. Okay, let's talk a little about, let's go to the next one, Mark, please. Let's talk a little bit about what happens when you have a loan partner too. A couple of comments. There are 5 things that you cannot train. You got to go backwards. Sorry. There it is. There are 5 things you can't train. So please, I know a lot of you would rather text than listen to me, but let me help you right now. There are 5 things you cannot train. The first is attitude. You'll never train it. You can create an environment people will choose. Okay? The second is operating style. Operating style. What does that mean? What's operating style? Does that mean like what is it? Operating style. What is that? Smooth operator. What does it mean? What do you think I mean by operating style? How someone functions in the world. Okay, so for example, operating style is I have a branch manager that will always be 3 to 5 minutes late, and you know who you are, Mr. O'Malley. And I know what's so cool about that for me is that when I have Rob on the schedule, my bathroom break is precisely when that meeting starts. So I get to go and, find out facilities and come back, and I know like clockwork I have the time to do that. It's a gift. Yeah, thank you, buddy. The truth is, we all have an operating style, right? Good, bad, indifferent. You can't change people operate in a certain way. You're not going to be able to change that of people. You accept it, right? Okay, operating style. Third, communication style. Communication style. Not necessarily what words people use, but how they communicate. Right? So let me give you an example. If you've got an LP2 that isn't that great at talking to borrowers, what should you do? Not have them talk to borrowers. Because you can't train them to like talking to borrowers and do it in a way that's not going to blow them up half the time. Okay? That's cool. Because trust me, there's plenty more for them to do. They don't necessarily have to be good at that. One of the challenges we face in hiring LP2s is that we almost never have the Holy Trinity. The Holy Trinity. Allison, are you still in here? Where are you? Stand up, young lady. This is the Holy Trinity. I want a big hand for Allison. So I don't really know Allison that well yet, but I am telling you, she is unbelievable. She's got all 3 of these pieces. She can talk to anybody. She is technically sound, and no one can hire her, by the way. She works for Lynn, so don't even try. She's technically sound, and she can administer a loan file. Allison, how long have you been in the mortgage business, hon? 4 years. How long do you think that it took for you to get, be honest, really strong on the loan structure side? Like where you really knew how to structure a loan? 2 years, okay? So this is an exceptional person with great coaching and mentorship from Lynn and Steve, and it still took her 2 years. Are you with me? Okay, but she wasn't in the business at all before that. Here's the problem, folks. Unfortunately, there are not that many Allisons. You're going to have to sacrifice. You're going to have to choose, geez, do I want someone who's a great communicator because that's what I need? Or do I want someone who does these other 2 things well? You're going to sacrifice somewhere, and it's okay. You're just going to have to structure your team to accommodate that, okay? So the other thing, that communication style you cannot train. Next, this is the most important of all, sense of urgency. You can never, ever train someone's sense of urgency. Just not going to happen. You know what I'm talking about. Let me ask you this. If I text you right now, what is an acceptable time frame for me to expect you to text me back? Somebody give me a number. 10 seconds. A minute. Someone give me a different number. Half an hour. Look at the difference. Is she wrong? No. But we're different. Are you with me? If I work with someone, I am the most anxious person you have ever met in your life. Hands down. Okay? If you work with someone like me, and you text me, I've texted you before you texted. Okay? That is a style, and that is a sense of urgency. It is not the right sense of urgency, it just is my sense of urgency. Are you with me? Okay? So you've got to make sure that you are married and matched that way. Do not think that you can find somebody that is a slow communicator or doesn't have that same kind of sense of urgency and train them up to where you are. It just won't happen. I promise you it'll be very frustrating for both of you. And she or he will think you're crazy and you will think they're crazy. Last one's intelligence. You can't train intelligence, right? You've got it or you don't. Intelligence is different than knowledge. Are you with me? Yeah, we can train knowledge all day long. Really smart people, they pick things up really quickly. Okay, so let me really briefly go over this triangle. So for the LP2, the top of their triangle is what we might call customer satisfaction, and that begins with communication. Are you with me? In a perfect world, your first LP2 should be a great communicator. It isn't always possible, okay? But in a perfect world, because why? That takes the most time. So you save yourself the most time by making sure this person has good communication skills. The technical side of being an LP2 is super, super critical. If that person can't be your first line of defense against a lead turning into a loan that shouldn't, that's a problem. It's kind of if you circle that, that's the non-negotiable piece, folks. They have to be technically sound. Why is it so hard to find them? There aren't that many of them. There are very few people who have the technical strength that they need, and that's why it takes so much time to find the right people. And on the administration side, I'll come right back to you, Mark. On the administration side, they have to be able to track and manage things through the process, just like we talked about. But remember this, if you run a good pipeline meeting every single morning with that LP2 and your team, you can help manage that process. Just don't expect that everybody's going to be good at all these three things. What I'm trying to make sure everybody understands is you have people on your staff right now. If you have an LP2, raise your hand, please. Okay, a lot of you do. So think about your LP2 and think about where they fit on this. How good are they from a communication perspective? How good are they technically? How good are they administratively? Here's the one thing that must happen. They have to get really good technically, or else what? They can't be your LP2. You can move them into an LP1 role, you can do something else with them, that they can't be an LP2. However, on the communication and administration side, that's stuff you can work with. Sometimes they could be a front-end LP2, maybe they could be a back-end LP2. It depends on where they are, right, in the process of things. So determine which of these three areas you think your current LP2 needs the most work, okay, and then decide how you're going to help that person improve in that area, right? All right. Why don't we delegate everything? Because we think we do it better, right? Let's be honest, come on. It took me so many years to delegate because I'm like the most controlling little bastard. And it took me forever. And it was just so amazing once I started to do it. I'm like, why did I not do this before? This is so much more fun. And now I do almost nothing. It's really cool. It's really true. All right, so a couple of comments that I would make. A good LP2 that's already trained is probably going to be your responsibility to find. Let me say that again. You own yourself. This is your team. If you're waiting for your branch manager or your ops manager or the angel of mercy or whatever it is to come down and deliver you an LP2, the truth is it ain't going to happen. you're going to have to take the ownership of finding that person and hopefully getting the support you need to groom and train that person. So take the ownership of that. The second thing is you've got a few behaviors, and I know I'm going to run just a couple of minutes over. I promise it won't be much. You have a few behaviors that get in your way. The first character that I see is what I call the hovercraft, okay? Where you delegate, sort of. You say, okay, Mark, do this stuff, and then you go, and you hover around Mark until he wants to kill you. And so that's the hovercraft. If you're the hovercraft, you have to learn to delegate and what? Leave them alone. Walk away. The professor. What's the professor do? Talks and talks and just shut up. Tell me what to do. Tell me when. Get out of my way. Right? The professor wants to talk too much. You don't need that. And the next one is the isolationist. The isolationist is the shoulder. Write down the word should. S-H-O-U-L-D. The stupidest word in the English language you have just written down. Because if somebody should be doing it, they would be doing it. Should is a stupid word. They either did it or they didn't do it. So when someone should be doing it, who's the problem? Me. Are you with me? Okay, so what we got to do is the isolationist goes into their office and they just hole up in their office. And you throw them raw meat and they stay in there and then they come out and they're like, why didn't everything get done? You should have been doing everything. Right? That's the isolationist. So far, which one are you? Think about it. The fixer. The fixer takes over everything the second it doesn't go precisely exactly the right way right then. Anybody have that problem? Right? The second it starts going a little sideways, you're like, oh, no problem. I got it. It's good. You're good. The critic. The critic sits around and basically says why everybody else is doing it wrong. And look, all of us are part, you can see yourself in everything here, right? I mean, I'm every single one of those things at times, okay? The key for yourself and the key to get the most out of what we're doing today is to think about how do you take advantage of making the right choices and engaging the people you need to get your loans closed quickly. The one thing I want to leave you with is, we had some issues where our turn times expanded. And it was really a moment for us in a couple of our offices where we said, wait a second, what a great opportunity. Turn times have expanded at the mothership. Thank you. Fantastic. You know why? Because I never waste a good crisis. We have a crisis. So what do we do with it? We figure out how we can impact it. And we've spent a lot of time, money, and energy. Those of you who are in some of the offices that are a part of this know we spent a lot of time, money, and energy putting together systems internally, hiring new people internally in our branches so that we control our turn times. Is it perfect? No, we still suck. We just suck a lot less. Okay? So it's about progress, right? So the thing I want you to think about is you own the turn times. You don't realize this always, but you own the turn times. Who believes that you own your own turn times? Whatever corporate's doing is not, okay, good. You own your turn times. The way that you manage your pipeline, the way that you think about each loan file, allowing yourself to make sure that you involve the borrower, your referral partners, and making darn sure that you don't let crummy files into the system is part of how you control your turn times. Question, let's say that you're in a branch that has 10 loan officers, and they're all averaging 5 loans a month, so they're closing 50 loans, right, a month. If one of those loan officers is putting in a bunch of unprepared files, getting a lot of long underwrites with lots of conditions, does that impact you negatively if you're not that loan officer? Say yes or no. It does. How does it do that? It sucks up the resource. Think about your last 10 closings. Was it the 9 good ones that you focused on or the one crappy one? It's a crappy one, okay? So think hard about these decisions. These are the things that can help you be more successful. And I just want to say that I'm so proud of the people that I have the luxury of working with, and I've seen so much progress. I have a bunch of folks that I've got a chance to watch make decisions about how they are delegating and how they're managing that process. And the one thing I can tell you for sure, just as an observer of the loan officer in the natural habitat I've been observing, and this is what I can tell you, is the loan officers who have taken ownership of how they control the process that we just went through, their income has done this. Not just this, but this. The second they took that ownership. And so I hope that that happens for you. Thank you very much. All right. Well, I have the luxury of introducing a very good friend of mine, and the queen of Summit Funding is what I like to call her. And this young lady has made a huge impact on my life. I mean, when we first got to the Bay Area region, Summit had some issues around jumbo and high balance loans. They hadn't really done a lot of them, and Todd's a good salesperson. We didn't talk about those things too much in our initial discussions, and I didn't know any better. So we had a lot of stuff going on, and Chris over the last 5 years has become not just a huge business resource for me, but a truly amazing personal friend. I can't tell you how much I love her. I think that she's managed us through what was an incredibly challenging time frame. And make no mistake, she wanted to hire people, and she did hire people. It's just not that easy, is it? It's just like our branches trying to find LP2s. So her and her team and the people that she leads, some of which are here. Yeah, team operations, stand up, please. All right. There's Annette and Terry and Lori and Jane. All your group down there.